social and political issues regarding Asian Americans. And I'd just like to hear a little bit more about, how these perspectives have influenced your writing and how kind of you approach talking about these issues as well.
The reason why I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and sort of on Facebook, but sort of not, but mostly on Instagram and on Twitter. And on Twitter, I do respond to certain situations. And if you notice, it's really, these quotes often get harvested for articles. And I do it because I'm trying to say that I disagree. Like if something bad is happening, sometimes I will try to create a quote that could be used for an article because I'm trying to say that a person who looks like me has something to say. And then I've often noticed that it has helped other younger people say, it's okay to say something because I said something. Now I don't say it on everything. I don't have time for that. However, when it comes to the rise of insults and assaults against Asians and Asian Americans in this country, I think that it's very important that all of us say, I disagree, we think this issue, and we have to do something. Now, for all of you who feel depressed, despair, anxiety, and anger at these issues, I just encourage you to just do a tiny bit on a regular basis. And you'd be amazed at how much better you feel. So activism doesn't mean that you have to, I don't know, be annoying. Right? You don't have to be that annoying activist. You can be that charming activist. And you could try to enact change because the world is so broken right now. And it is upon Generation Z, Millennials, Gen X, to really change things. And one person can't do it. I think all of us did get involved. You'd be amazed at how much we could change about our environment, about our political situation, and you guys can do it. You guys can do it.
Thank you for that. I would like to ask one more question to follow on the line of activism, but before that, I would just like to tell the audience in person that if you would like to ask a question after us, please feel free to line up at the microphones on either your left or right. And for the people on Zoom, we will proceed with the in-person questions. But I know that earlier when you were doing your reading of the essay, you talked about your advisor and how they said that you should be really confident in front of your interviewer because you wanted to kind of defeat the stereotype of this meek Asian girl. And I also
Oriental.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting choice of word.
Wait, that's how old people used to say it. Mm-hmm. It's not okay now, but it's how people used to say it.
Yeah. So I'm kind of wondering, for the fact that there's a lot to unpack in the history of racism and sexism against Asian American women, like inequality, socioeconomic status, colonialism, patriarchy, the list goes on, and COVID has also added to anti-Asian violence. I'm kind of wondering how you work through that, not just as a writer, but also as an Asian American woman yourself.
Well, I don't think I'm going to defeat patriarchy today. But I think just being aware of patriarchy, just being aware of sexism, being aware of classism, very, very important within our own community. And one of the things I'm going to take you guys all to task a little bit is I see this real rift in our community between international students and Asian Americans in this country. Don't do that. There's really just no need. We can learn from each other. We'll actually have a much larger group together. And it's really fun if you can bridge that divide. One of the things that I really want to discuss is a kind of colonialism that's occurred in this country where we feel like we have to assimilate and abnegate our culture and mortify ourselves in order to become successful. And I'm going to say that you can be a very successful person leaning into your own culture. I want to encourage you to do so because it'd be a shame if you forgot your own superpowers that you learned at home.
I really love that you can be a superhero leaning into your own culture. I guess at this time we will start going to audience questions. I can see there's a lot of excited and people lining up. I guess we can start with the person at the microphone to the right.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, what's your name, honey?
Hi, my name is Becky. First I want to say thank you for coming.
What college are you in?
Oh, I was in Morse College. I graduated in May 2020, and now I'm doing scientific research at Yale.
What's your morsel?
I'm a Morse. I want to first say thank you for
How
coming
does this humble?
Oh. I don't know about that. Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I've read both of your books. I love Pachinko. I almost lost my laptop because I got so distracted while reading it on the bus. And Free Food for Millionaires is what got me through when I had COVID and I was in isolation for a week. So thank you so much. I have two questions. I hope that's okay. You could just answer one if that's too much.
Go for it.
My first question.
What's your name?
My name is Becky.
Becky.
Becky. Sorry if I'm talking fast, I'm nervous. Pachinko, I really like your opening line, and I've read in places that they are often thesis statements for your entire book. I think in Pachinko it's something like history has failed us, but no matter, something like that. I was wondering if you could explain what you meant by that, because my roommate is actually also in the room. We were talking about it this week, and we were wondering what you meant by that.
So, history has failed us, but no matter is the thesis statement of Pachinko. I'm arguing that history has failed ordinary people, but no matter, because ordinary people have worked around it and still survived. And I focus on the second part, the second clause of that sentence that's significantly more important to me than the fact that history has failed us. I think history has failed every one of us in this room. It doesn't matter because we're still here. And we're going to be here. And I wanted to focus on that courage, that resilience, and the ability for us to fight powers that want to erase us. Question number 2.
Question number 2. Do you like Casey Han?
Do. If you don't like her, don't tell me.
No, I love her, but I was just curious.
Yeah, I like the difficult Korean girl. Me too. I'm not the difficult Korean girl. I'm actually incredibly compliant most of the time. And that's okay too. Like, I've been married for almost 30 years. I've never smoked a cigarette. I don't know how to play golf. Never watched a three-way. It's in the book. But I love Casey Han because I love sassy, powerful women of color. And she really inspired me. And I interviewed lots of girls like Casey, and I wanted to write her as a character, as a heroine. Because most of 19th century novels, the heroine is difficult and has an extraordinary pluck, like the way I've discussed it before. So I was like, why not an Asian American difficult woman?
Thank you for your answer.
Sure.
Alright, so
Hi, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Rose. I'm from Styles.
Television.
Yes.
I think we have one of those here. Yes.
I
don't know as
have
good as Tumble, yeah.
two questions. One that I thought through very carefully, and one that I just have a question with. Sorry, I'm also nervous because it's something you just mentioned. So the first question was about, you mentioned power of like talking, and I think it extends to reading and writing as well. But I was wondering if you think the world would be a better place if more people read books, and how it would look different.
I wish I could say that was true. But if you look at the history of wars around the world, especially in the 20th century, very intelligent people decided to use their intelligence for immoral purposes. And I want to say that because as much as I believe in reading can be a moral force, I also know that knowledge can be used for evil. And that's something that I speak about because we have evidence of it in colonialism and imperialism and through wars and genocide. Very smart people have used their knowledge to exploit, oppress, and to murder. They read books. So, do I believe that we should read books? Absolutely. Do I also believe that we should be ethical people? Even more so. So it's a combination of knowledge plus ethical mandates in which we treat our neighbors and people who have less than we do with as much care and concern. That is something that I believe in. But thank you. I would like for it to be that readers were better people. I think Plato believed that. I think he thought that if we could have a utopia based upon a certain kind of shared reading, unfortunately, I think we know that Nazis were very smart.
And then just my quick second question was, you mentioned that you've been married for 30 years. What do you think makes a good marriage?
$1,000,000 question.
Well, my husband's not here. Which means that I can't say it's a good marriage. I think it's good for me. So it'll be my 29th anniversary in September, and I've known him for 31 years. I got married when I was 24. I met my husband when I was 22. It's not normal. It's not normal. But I thought he was so cute. I was like, let's do this. I still think he's really cute, so I think that helps. Like my shrink said, the person that you're with should be visually nourishing. My husband is visually nourishing. Now that he's not here, I can't embarrass him. Also, he's a really good person. We have very shared values of ethics and morality. Yeah, so that's one of the things. Hi.
Hi, man.
How are you? What's your name?
I'm Sam. I'm a sophomore in Berkeley studying theater and econ.
Nice.
I'm a Korean American from Queens. Pretty inspirational to see your work and the release of Pachinko, the TV series. So I'm wondering, so you said you won awards for nonfiction and fiction at Yale. I'm wondering why fiction is your genre and your thoughts on other genres and whether there are plans in the future for writing to.
Politics is weird. And I don't think it's necessarily bad or good. It's more like now I see it as information and knowledge. So in terms of what you're going through and the changes that we need to go through, I'm trying so hard to build the biggest possible tent with the strongest players. So sometimes if I disagree with you, I'm still going to say we can still play. And that's important for politics.
It was really helpful. Thank you.
Hello,
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Jennifer. I'm a first year in Benjamin Franklin College. This was the new one.
Yes, yes. I think you have a peer here.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Actually, I saw you back in 2019 in Singapore when you were at our Writers Festival.
Oh, I was there, yes.
And I had two questions I didn't get to ask that day because there were too many people. So my first question was specific to your craft. So I really like writing historical fiction. I'm hoping to major in English. And something that I've struggled with is how to create really realistic, moving characters like you do for essentially for different time periods. Like, how do you make the desires and like their habits come alive on paper?
Well, I think one of the things I want to encourage you to try to remember is that like your grandmother or your grandfather or your great-grandparents that you may never have met are just like you. They drank coffee if they had coffee. If they were in Singapore, they had to deal with a lot of heat. Right? The way we deal with heat is not that different from the way they dealt with heat. I kind of, instead of thinking of them as something like unicorns, you can just remember that they're like you. So when I think about, for example, a person who called a terrorist in print when I was in college, instead of thinking that he's a bad person, I can think, well, maybe I threatened him in some way. I bothered him in some way. Maybe my activism offended him because I was saying, look at the Koreans. Look at the Koreans and Koreans want to study Korean. Maybe for him that was threatening because he's thinking, I just want to assimilate and belong here. And why does he feel this way? So when I think about that person as a character rather than the person himself, he could have had very good reason. Maybe he was told by his family, keep your head down, work really hard because things are really tough for us. So instead of thinking of him as somebody negative, I have to think about him with more compassion and empathy. And I think that the most important quality of a fiction writer is really empathy. And that is a lifetime's worth of practice. Because sometimes you don't want that empathy for people who dislike you. It's really hard. Sometimes I really want to hold a grudge. It's one of my least admirable qualities. But let's say somebody was really mean to you, right? You're my friend.
Maybe I don't want to sit with them at lunch. Like, no, that person wasn't nice to you, so why do we have to sit with them? But as a fiction writer, I have to figure out, why was that person mean to you? Not that that was okay, but why did that happen? And how do I explain it from his point of view as well as from your point of view? And then also to take the point of view of what's the right thing. And that's really the modulating work of fiction, is that you have viewpoint characters, two viewpoint characters, and you also have the narrator. And that, again, is a lifetime's work. Carry on.
The second question was just something I was really curious about. So I remember that in 2019, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said your first job you spent many years working on was called Motherland.
Yes.
And I was just wondering, what led you to scrap it?
It was boring. It was boring. It was about Solomon, and Solomon is not an important character in the book. He's boring. So I was like, why would I care about this yuppie? I thought he had vile, uninteresting, but he wasn't vile, he was more like, he was uninteresting. And he couldn't carry the novel, so I had to start all over again and start with Sanya. And once I had Sanya, then Solomon made sense to me. But Solomon without Sanya makes no sense. But that took so much effort to throw away the entire manuscript that was completed. Thank you. Hello.
Hi.
What's your name?
Yannick.
Terrence.
So, Yannick.
Yannick. Y-A-N-I-C-K? Yeah. Oh, grand.
Yeah, I'm a senior, well, senior student, I have two questions. So my first question, I saw you back in Dragon Court back in 2018.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was really great to talk there too. So,
Thank you.
but yeah, that was 4 years ago, and I was just wondering, like, how have like the last 4 years changed? Like, obviously, 2020 kind of went off the rails, a lot of plans derailed, but also changing the ball in it. So yeah, how have these past 4 years been? And like, what are your next
The past 4 years have been really difficult. Really, really difficult. My parents are ill. They're more stable now, which is really nice. And my son is now 24. He's almost 25 in January. And I say this as an honest answer to you, because I'm 53, so I'm probably the age of some of your parents, right? And which means that I'm right in between two generations. And that requires a different kind of attention, not just in my career. And of course, in my career, I've had a lot of changes. I have 5 jobs. I'm a college professor. I write essays on a freelance basis. I also write books. I also give public lectures around the world. And I also write for television. I serve on 2 national awards. I say this because people think that writers sit at their desks, get inspired, drink coffee. I move around a lot, and I do a lot of work, and I also take care of my family. And I say this because also I'm a woman. So I'm expected to do more things as a woman than men are. And that's okay, but I think that I'll be honest about it. So, your second question.
Yeah, so you mentioned at one point, like, the divide between Americans or ex-Americans, Asian Americans in this case, and like internationals. And I was wondering, like, how would you go about like bridging that divide? Because I feel like, especially as a lot of buzzwords like cultural appropriation lose their meaning, and it's like people are trying to get more in touch with their own identities or like their families' identities, versus like internationals, we see it as like, why are you putting on this performance of what you think this identity is? Like, how do you bridge that gap between like ex-Americans and their international counterparts?
Well, this is an important question, especially at your age in your life, because when you're in college, you are forming your identity more, it's gelling a bit more, but you're also playing with your identity. You're trying things out. Like, you're trying to be romantic, you're trying to be academic, you're trying to be intellectual, you're political, all those things. And then also you have this aspect of region and nation and also culture, right? I address Asians and Asian Americans and the division that I see in campuses around the country. I've seen it. And I think it's silly because we have much to learn from each other. I find this whole issue of authenticity deeply distressing. I've had people say to me, well, you don't speak Korean very well. And here you are writing books about Korea. And I think it's kind of funny to me that a person wants to say this to me because it's a power play. Because I'm thinking, well, there are 75 million people guaranteed who speak Korean better than me. Because there's 50 million in South Korea, 25 in North Korea. And yet, I do what I do, and it's not to take away from what they can do and what I can do. But I find that if you sit in the judge's seat and say, this person is good Korean, bad Korean, it's not helpful. And who appropriates who doesn't appropriate. All those questions are not terribly meaningful, but it's often an issue of power. And I question that, because it's not real power, it's fake power. And I want all of you to have real power. And real power means that you feel strong without needing to diminish another person. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Ruth. I'm also from Queens. I'm a professor in TV. And I have two questions.
Go ahead.
One is, a lot of people see themselves in you and see you as a source of power. And your book has become a account for a lot of Asian power, Asian history that isn't known to the general public. So how did it feel when you realized that you were part of this awakening and for us to learn more about our history?
Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Can you just move the microphone toward your mouth? No, I really want to hear your question.
Okay.
I think it's amazing.
So I said a lot of people see themselves in you and see you as a source of power. And your book has sort of become this kickoff for a lot of Asian power and Asian history that isn't generally known to the public. So how did it feel when you realized that you were part of this awakening to know Asian history?
Well, I don't really think of it that way. I think it's flattering to think of it that way. Like, I guess I could go to sleep at night thinking that I made a difference. But I don't do that. Mostly I walk around the house feeling glum. Just because that's who I am. I think that as long as I'm dealing with questions that I want to deal with and do my work, and if I'm useful to some people, that's really great. But in terms of thinking about the impact or about how other people see me, I think that's a fool's errand. So as kind as you are to say those things, thank you very much, it means a lot to me. And yet it can't mean too much to me. Because if I cared about that or trying always to be thoughtful as some sort of inspiration, I think I would feel like a phony. And you know, being from Queens, we hate phonies, right? So that's like the number one thing I really dislike is lying and phonies. So I keep thinking, like, what can I do to somehow be truly me, warts and all? And that's one of the things that I try to do when I speak, is to tell the truth. But thank you.
And I had another question.
Sure.
The question was, what cultural traditions from your history or your parents, how do you still keep?
I can't hear, sorry.
Oh, it said, what cultural traditions from your parents or from your history do you still keep close to you as you keep them writing and keep on learning?
What cultural traditions do I keep close to?
The things that your parents have taught you and like being Korean has taught you.
I think, yeah, when I was growing up, we didn't do things like chuseok or things like that. My parents were always working. So, this is kind of funny, but I remember going to a lot of my friends' houses who are American and they would have Halloween decorations. I was like, wow, somebody went out and bought Halloween decorations. They hung them up in their house, like, kind of cool. But it was something that I didn't grow up with, right? But I think it's nice, like in the same way you have Easter. I think the only Korean tradition that we always did was January 1st, Seollal, which is New Year's Day. That is something that we have never deviated from. But in terms of other traditions in my family, I mean, we're a Christian family. My grandfather was a minister, so that's always been sort of part of my life. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I think this will be our last question since it looks like we're running out of time. So
so thank you all.
No. Oh no, but the voice didn't get to talk at all. No, come back. No, I'm gonna make space for, I have one quick question, go ahead.
There's a lot of pressure. Hi, I'm Clara. I'm a junior in Franklin. I also was at your talk back in 2019.
Thank you for coming back.
Yeah. I had a question. I also worked in Korea all of last year, and I was interested, like Lynn, in the sort of explosive response from Koreans about the translated version of Pachinko. I also obviously really loved the book, and I was interested to know if the response from the American audiences was very different from the response that you saw from Korean audiences. I don't know how in tune you would have been to that. And then I also was interested to know about your experience now having it adapted into a TV show and how much you worked on that and how you feel about it now that it's sort of airing.
Oh, I have no comment on the TV show at all. So that's one. The second thing is, in terms of the explosion that happened in Korea, I'm going to tell you something funny. I was really disappointed. Because I published this book in 2017, and it caught like wildfire in the US after the National Book Award finalists in the top 10 of the New York Times. And I sold a lot of copies and did book tours around the world. And I would go to do events where there would be 1,000 people, and 998 of them would be white or black. I was like, where are my Asians at? And they were nowhere to be found. And I was really upset because I care so much about our culture, our community. But they weren't there, and then gradually what would happen is that white people and black people gave the book to Asians. I kid you not. And then they would come to my events, bringing the book, and say things to me like, I didn't want to read this. And I would say, I'm sorry. And they would say things like, I'm a very busy person. I don't have time to go to bookstore meetings. But I wanted to see who you were. I would bow, because I didn't know what else to do. And then I would say, thank you very much. And eventually they would say, I like the book. So now that it's doing well, people keep saying, oh, all of your readers must be Korean or Asian American. And we're like, no, this is new. This is really new. Like, I've been waiting for you for a long time. And I'm so glad you're here. But I've been waiting for you because I wrote this book for you. I wrote this book for me, I wrote this book for us, and I'm really honored that the majority culture and people, this book did great in New Zealand. Well before America. So it's kind of funny to me. But I'm really honored that the Koreans are finally reading the book, and it's great.
I think this talk was like the talk of the Asian American community for the past 2 weeks.
Thank you. But that means that means so much to me, truly. There were 2 boys who were standing there, and I want to know what they thought because I have a son. There were 2. Don't hide. I want to hear it. What's your name? How are you? What's your question? Go ahead. Thank you. Can you leave me the mic?
I guess I was wondering, do you have a favorite character?
Do I have a favorite character? Yes. I think I used to like Hansu, and I do like Hansu. But people have misunderstood my liking of Hansu to thinking that he's my favorite character, and I guess it was really fun to write him. But I have to say that I think Sanya and Changi's relationship is really important to me. And that is the most important part of Pachinko. And also Moses. I absolutely adore Moses. So, for Pachinko anyway. And as for Free Fruit Millionaires, again, the KCL friendship is very important to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jonas, I'm a grad student, and I just wanted to say first thing that I'm half Korean. My family has long roots in Southern California for several decades, and so a lot of things about like assimilation as well as trying to sort of balance traditions, especially because my family grew up in a very wide environment at that time, really resonated with me, and there's so many parallels. I mean, not to mention my aunt, she went to law school as well. She's around your age, and she also writes Asian American fiction. But she chose to go with the law route rather than the writing. But yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to thank you so much for writing stories that can really resonate with something that's very like it's just very underrepresented, And yeah.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question.
Go ahead. I wanted to make sure we got it.
Yeah. I understand. We're going over time, but yeah, my question was about actually. It was related to a question earlier, but it's about essentially branching the fact, when we say Asian American, we say Asian, we're talking about such grand diversity of cultures and histories, especially histories which are often in opposition to each other. Pachinko talks a lot about this, obviously. I mean, a lot of his grandparents who grew up under, say, the Japanese occupation, as well as, all kinds of other border disputes, whatever their history. How would you say the best advice to reconcile, these cultural differences, often, especially when a lot of people from Asia, they don't feel this solidarity that often has sort of formed in an American context. Yeah.
I think what's really funny to me is that because I became politicized at Yale and felt so strongly about being Asian American, that when I lived in Asia between 2000 and 2007 and 2011, I would travel around Asian countries and they would look at me like, what do you mean, this Asian American? Because it's a silly, to them it was very silly, but to me it was very important and political. And as you know, Asian American is a political construct that was created, and it's a movement. So in terms of finding reconciliation and unity, I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that we respect the differences. I say just name the differences, honor the differences, and also to say what are our shared goals. If we can figure out what the shared goals are, and not pretend that there are differences, and also a painful history sometimes, and internecine warfare among the cultures, then it's much more respectful. So I think that's the only way we can really have true love, is by honesty. And I use the word love because in order for us to keep going, we're going to need a lot of love.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before we end, I'd like to thank all of you for your time, whether you're attending virtually or in person here with us today. Thank you again to our co-sponsors for their support, and of course to Min for making the time to come and talk with us today. We encourage you to sign up for our ACC weekly newsletter, and follow us on social media so you can learn more about future ACC events. And this is a reminder that if you have brought a copy of one of Min's works, this is a reminder that a book signing will follow outside the gallery. Finally, we'd like to announce the winners of our raffle. So if your name is called, please see ACC Associate Director, Draws, who's standing over there. For a signed copy of either Pachinko or Free Food for Billionaires. So let me read the names of the winners. Andrew Song, Christopher Yu, Ali Kwong, Karis Ryu, Sheena Kwan, Emily Peng, Brian Choi, Sunera Suma, Jessica Lee, and Lauren Chan. This concludes our round. Thank you.
Guys, just a reminder for the book signing, if you could write your name on a notes app so that Min can address the book to you personally, and if you have a message for her or something, please also write it on the notes app, and we'll be having that. Thank you.